evening, folks, and welcome to the Square D, the Jack the Ripper of GAA Analytics. My name is Connor Galvin, and I'm joined, as ever, by the king, the professor himself, and founder of GAA Pro Stats, Mr. Stephen O'Mara. Right, we're moving on. We're moving on to Saturday's action in Croker, right? Dublin and Monaghan. We talked before last week. Look, we're not saying we told you so by any means, but a certain
You did.
member called it level pegging after 60 minutes. Dublin take over. Look at the game, watching it. There was never a threat, Monaghan. We're going to win this match realistically. Dublin were all the time. So could the men. Monaghan were getting more exhausted, even though they slowed down the phases. I think you were saying earlier on the phase numerated around 63, 64, a few too many for the Monaghan lads. Dublin hit the gas at the end. Not quite the rumble in the jungle of Ali on the ropes against Foreman. Waiting. Is he tired enough? No, not yet. Next thing, he's tired. Boom, knock him out. But it wasn't far off. It was clinical in the end.
Yeah, and I didn't think Monaghan would stay until the 55 minutes. There was an outside chance they could, but that inevitably Dublin would do it in the last 15. You called, we were very close. I called Derry to win, and they were at one of those referee decisions away. Heaven forbid the stats would get there, and you did say, I don't know how serious or how much you were in jest, but the quote was, if I had time, I'd have given you soundbite on Twitter. You did say Monaghan ahead of 55, Dublin to win. So you were pretty close, level of 60. Look, we'll have a look. And again, it is notable that they went at that kind of Roscommon model for the most part. And again, there's a key feature on the new software that really explained this. I tweeted it at half time. But we look here at 12 points all in 60 minutes, Again, was really noteworthy that 4.4 points per 10 phase average throughout the league. We'll see Monaghan at 4.3, albeit they shot above expected score at 3.6. Dublin 4.6, so they shot above expected score at 4.1 as well. But both semi-finals teetered around those 4.4 points per 10 phases until the last 10, 15 minutes, respectively, when respectively how we've done the show, when the favourites took off. Derry and Kerry, as we saw, was more to do with the forensics around the kick-out. And maybe one poor referee decision. Dublin, Monaghan, this was always likely to be the last 15 minutes if Monaghan didn't do something exceptional. 1-4 to a point. Dublin 9 phases, Monaghan 6. So yeah, look, it was always likely to be the case, and it turned out to be.
Yeah, that's the extraordinary thing. I mean, as you made the point earlier on, in your Moneyball graph, against the better teams, as much as the romanticized version of GA is, right, get the ball up, lads, get it in the forwards. Against your better teams, it just is not an option. It's literally bringing a knife to the gunfight and you'll be blown to smithereens. The Monaghan boys, executed this remarkably well for the 60 minutes. Like there's no question about it. But let's just delve a little bit deeper, right? And let's just debunk some of the falsehoods of the man-on-man system here.
Yeah, again, no more than the Derry-Kerry game, the rhetoric seemed to be, I didn't listen to much mainstream media. I happened to wander by a TV at one stage and I heard a bit on Kerry and Derry. But again, one of the things I gather was they went at it, they played man-on-man, and I don't know who's watching what, but just to get, here's Monaghan's first phase, and what do we have there in between the 13 and the 20? That's right, that's a sweeper. Bach was back out. There's Mick Fitz. And it was just to give a very brief forensic piece on this. A lot of teams defend lower. Dublin do try and press out a little bit. And you'll see here, but here there's no sweeper. But the principle is, this is like what Derry do, because Monaghan are attacking with 15 men into blanket defence. If Dublin want to get a sweeper, it has to be that man, let's say, for example, on that blue arrow, dropped back, what's that, 50 metres or so. But that's going to leave these three Monaghan men, the keeper, the sweeper, and whoever else. Those three boys are going to be essentially only faced by the Dublin man in the oval. So when everybody else kept their sweeper at home, you could just keep a sweeper easy. Now there's strategy involved in getting a sweeper, and it's not always possible, or sometimes it's not done correctly. You've got to shift in zones and whatnot. But Dublin did, as we see here, have a sweeper when they could. But the payoff of pressing out that bit higher sometimes, which I never would against a team who bring their keeper forward, because you're going to be dealing with 2v1s. In this case, they didn't. Again, here we are, next phase. And here's the issue, I suppose, is that Monaghan held the ball. They did what we said they'd have to do to win. Through the hands, held the ball. Dublin's line is deeper here, but they don't shift across the line well enough. The sweeper's inside, and Monaghan get off the shot. So and Monaghan did really well on that. And we'll see the figures now shortly. Here, equally, free given ahead of the play. I heard talk of, I had to go back and say, were we watching the same game? I heard talk of Monaghan playing man on man. No, they didn't. Look at the foul ahead of the ball. What have we got? The same as I've been looking at for the last 3 years anyway. Darren Hughes inside the D, sweep, and number 20 on his back. And here, this probably comes on to a key point. I didn't think Monaghan would hold them. I suppose if I thought about this an extra level, maybe I would have foreseen this. Still wouldn't have fancied Monaghan to stay level 50 to 60 minutes anyway. So fair, it was fair going that they did. But I did talk about how Derry exploited McManus for pace, and McCarron, I think, if I remember correctly. It's a lot of shows ago now. But what Dublin didn't do, that Derry did do, and I should have thought about this, Cluxton stays at home. Cluxton only comes out in an emergency. So you'll see Monaghan got to defend a deep arc again with a sweeper. And what's notable here is on that McManus point is that Dublin only have 12 players engaged in this attack. So McManus was never dragged behind the ball. He got to do what forwards want to do, stayed ahead of the ball, played the way Messi played in the World Cup for Argentina. Everyone else can compensate by working harder. Messi, you do the magic, you stay ahead of the ball. So Dublin allowed Monaghan to do that. I suppose Dublin didn't break from their norm. That's what Dublin always do. Why would they? They've won 6 of the last 8 All-Irelands doing that. So maybe there was no reason to. So I suppose that was a point I made. I thought McManus might get exploited. I thought they were damned if, as I said, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. But that it didn't play out that way for that reason.
The interesting thing was Kerry did that quite a few times yesterday with Clifford. Clifford was a funny one. One wonders, is it a case of, right, you're letting him get the gas back in the lungs, just leave him up there. But they defended with 14 players all the while. Oran Lynch was galloping past him. Like you said, if there's a turnover, they ping the ball down. He could run it into the net, Joe Sheridan style, in 2010. There's a cape and space ahead of him.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk, right, half time in the Dubs Monaghan game, right? The whole, this was in a melting pot. There was 1 point in it. Monaghan slow phases, right? Stats wise, what were we looking at half time?
Yeah, well, again, this is the new feature I have in the software, and it's gold, because I used to kind of have to look at this and go back and do it manually after the game and and guesstimate during the game. But now in real time, single operative on the laptop, this is coming out. Now, so it was interestingly, again, just to get before I go on to that more key point, we look here at the phase of the blanket defenses, and Dublin into blanket defenses are +1, have scored 8 from 18, 44% expected score 41. Monaghan scored 48%, expected to score 36, interestingly, and that's more along the lines of what I'd have expected. So they did shoot above expected score on those kicks. But crucially, the difference here is, and this is what you expect from the better team, Dublin got 4 man-on-man attacks, they scored 3. They got 1 overlap, they scored. So from man-on-man or overlap, Dublin scored 4 out of 5. Monaghan, and this is again up to 60, just before 60 minutes. Sorry, I've left out a Monaghan point here by accident. But Monaghan scored 1 from 4. But the key point, and I tweeted at half time, and here, good man, I'm after clipping these a point before Monaghan equalised, but it doesn't change the overview massively. At half time, I tweeted. So we looked at Derry making aggressive kicks forward, which is a first cousin of, but a different table to whether you transition slowly, quickly, or moderately. And if we look again at the process play, Monaghan's slow transition, 50%. At half time, if I remember correctly, it was 7 points from 12. And from 4, where they had transitioned quickly, they scored. They got one shot that they put wide, 3 turnovers, no scores. Going back to the Kerry game of the league, they were trying to kick the ball at pace through the middle third. It was a disaster. We pointed it out here in the show. They tore it down. I then pointed out that when they quick transition through the hands against, maybe was it Armagh or Tyrone, they great joy. But even quick transitioning through the hands here against Dublin, what happened up to the 68th minute? 5 quick transitions, 1 moderate transition, 4 turnovers, 1 wide, 1 point. So they scored 18% when they've tried to quick transition. And again, they're quick transitioning against players who probably in 4 cases are as fast as them, and in 14 are faster. It doesn't make sense. You can see there's a temptation when certain situations look nice, all things being equal, but all things aren't equal. They're up against faster, athletically superior opponents in 10 out of 14 positions. And
The
ultimately,
interesting thing is,
again,
right,
if Monaghan had, and what Roscommon did, I suppose Roscommon probably kicked a few more, but Roscommon never really tried that, if I remember correctly.
but if
Monaghan
you
did,
look at
as I say,
the
it's the difference of 50%.
if you look at the software there in the quick transition, right, the 5 quick transitions, they scored a point,
Yeah.
right, but their expected score, right, was only 0.99. It was obviously 0.1 less than 1
Well,
point,
what
which
I
essentially
presume that
meant
was, they got,
they never got a shot. They got 1 shot of the
yeah, well,
5.
it
The
says here,
turnovers were way out the field.
you're complicated, the uncomplicated, because there's 4 turnovers and 1 shot. It's a 99% shot. It was obviously a 14-yard free. That's what would account for a
Yeah,
99% shot or something along those lines. But yeah, they got turned over. They got turned over 4 of those 5 quick transitions.
yeah.
And ultimately, and when I tweeted that at halftime, actually, Maurice Brosnan, the sports writer, I think he might be the chief sports writer or GA writer with the Examiner, does analysis for Barna in Galway, actually. But Maurice Brosnan tweeted straight after. I don't know if you can pick it up on TV, but Vinnie Corey was literally shouting at them, slow it down, which wasn't picked up on TV. But Corey obviously knew it. But again, the fan is in the fire. You're excited in Croke Park, but it was a fatal error. Looking at those figures, it was a fatal error to go to those quick transitions again. Same topic, and I'll give this no more than 45 seconds again. I don't believe Ulster footballers individually warrant their position where they 5 of the top 10 teams in the country. I think they've been tactically superior on average to the rest of the country. Teams are now catching up. Roscommon have gone more Ulster than the Ulster teams. Galway have gone more Ulster than the Ulster teams. Mayo are still hanging in there with Kerry trying to go end to end as much as they can. Dublin are a bit of a they'll play it either way depending. Derry and Monaghan, in my view, have got where they've got by playing that way. And when you don't break it down phase by phase, you can get mixed up in the melange of which ones were successful and which ones weren't. Notably, a figure we glossed over, I missed, was it actually Kerry, and generally they would do much better, only scored 3 from 11 on aggressive kick passes forward, which is noteworthy. But Monaghan and Derry, for me, probably just should have said, no, we're not trying quick transitions, no matter how tempting it looks. Unless it's an overlap, we're going through the hands, we're processing. That's where the numbers are good. It was 5.7 per 10 phases for Derry. It's 5.0 per 10 or 5 per 10 phases for Monaghan. That's what worked. That's what could have worked throughout. If Joe Brawley was watching, he had burned the laptop, but
Oh yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. We're going to
mathematical
end up.
scientific data is there. That's what Monaghan should have stayed at all day.
Yeah, like we're going to end up with Olympic handball with some of these teams if the evolution continues because there'll be no kicking. It's just the percentages
And it
are
will be an
wrong.
intelligent evolution for 70% of teams playing against
Oh, without a
top
doubt.
and there's grey area in between. But you know, if Monaghan go out and try and play man old school football against Dublin, they're going to get massacred. Won't get into it now. We'll put up the article after Thursday's show, stats show, where we'll look at just stats in general. But ban the back pass to the goalkeeper, it all changes because you can press man and man. They can't 5v4 out of the back. Because the logical transition here is that it goes more, not less like this.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what to do with the back pass. Maybe like the soccer, if they just didn't allow the goalie pick up the ball from a back pass.
Stephen Cluxton will still be grand.
Oh yeah, but I tell you, these. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the amount of high tackles, some sidestepping, and oh yeah, that would
Wait till
really
you
like.
hear, wait till you hear the lads who were shouting for 20 years. Wow, would you stop passing back to the keeper? Wait till you see when the keeper has to header the ball out.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, the handiest thing in my view is if they ban the hand pass, that would just sort out everything
Well,
because you can hit a 3 yard kick pass. Anyway, the last 10 and injury time,
yeah,
right
look,
into the money ball minutes. This was like a volcano erupting. As I mentioned earlier on, it was like Ali going off the ropes down in Kinshasa and knocking the block off George Foreman. Although he did make a fortune out of the old fat grilling machines in later life, but
yeah,
the last 10 annihilation.
look, yeah, and again, it was always likely Dublin's athleticism. And the problem as well, and Mayo learned this as well, when you play Dublin in any way, but especially when you end with any man-on-man elements, the little things have to go your way. You have to be meticulous. And anything off that, boom, you're done. And I suppose it's easy to be wise after the event. And absolutely agree with Monaghan trying to press this kick out based on the stats that were there. Dublin were scoring at the blanket defences as well. And again, it's not an easy kick out. But Cluxton being Cluxton puts it into a gap that looks bigger than it is, because by the time it lands, you'll see how small that gap was. But that's Cluxton. We don't need to do a piece on him every week. But from here, it's 60.5 minutes. You're Monaghan against Dublin. Maybe, is it noble or is it naive to try and press the man-on-man up the field? And we look here at the Monaghan is at 8 there between between the 45 and the 65 is that a picture. Like, what am I saying? Right, okay, fair enough. You've got a vague chance at pressing them in the corner. Probably very vague, to be honest, when we look at that image. But what direction do I want this Monaghan man at the left side of the screen to go at this stage? There's no way Monaghan are turning Dublin over high up the field at this time in parts of the game. Just not going to happen. Probably won't happen early in the game. It's certainly not happening on 60 minutes. For me, that white arrow is where that Monaghan man should go, despite Dublin's figures into his own defences at this stage. If he steps back, there's Darren Hughes can step back into sweep. But Dublin, look at this. As soon as I saw this, that screenshot was implanted in my head after the game. Level scores. It's too open now. I got talking about the fact that Monaghan got sweepers. They got them when they could, but this kick out start to finish, they ended up man on man because they didn't drop off, because Dublin went down the central channel. They couldn't sweep off a weak side. Again, Dublin very cleverly spined. It's really well worked on. But ultimately, like, Brian Fenton is here. And I mean, Fenton's on I wouldn't mind Fenton ends up on Monaghan, who's already on a yellow card, apart from being I suppose defensively speaking, he's a clumsy full forward. Cracking full forward, but as a defender, I'd say a clumsy full forward. It's Fenton on Monaghan. It's a mismatch. He gives, he goes. Now, it's a great score. It's a great finish. But, I could only see one thing happening from the time Monaghan didn't drop back that sweeper, and probably very naive. And again, obviously, I'm presuming someone else has done a piece on this somewhere. So you're on 1 point, reminiscent of the 2016 Ireland final. It was level, I think, on 65 minutes and 67.5 minutes. In 2 minutes and 10 seconds or something, Dublin scored 3 points. They won 2 kickouts. They went 1 up, 1-2 kickouts, and there were 3 up before we knew it. David Clark hit a kick out straight off Dermot Connolly's back, landed perfectly in Connolly's lap. But we see here, and this is that athleticism. But let's give credit where it's due. But Dessie Farrell got the toughest gig in football. He followed Jim Gavin in 6 in a row, 7 out of 8 All Irelands. But Dessie Farrell was a hockey player, international, I think, high-end hockey player anyway by Irish standards. And I think a hockey coach maybe. This is a fake space press. This is hockey language. They get it to the corner. You see straight away he's showing, don't mind the arrow from it, left corner back. He's being shown up the line, not bringing back for the easy pass. Now, Dublin could push across here. I think it's Mannion. I'd probably say, yeah, if we're doing this, get across onto the keeper straight away. Maybe they're worried about the right corner back going up the way. We see here again your friend Paddy Small does it off from back the way, stays parallel, makes him go up the way. And from start to now, again, won't get into referees again. This is a potentially key moment. There's no dressing up what that is. And that's potentially a game changer there. But we'll call it severe heat put and kept on the ball. And at this stage, I think it is Mannion or Kilkenny? I think it's Mannion is in on Began, which should be the easy out. That's what's called the blindside press in hockey, where you leave a man in dead space, you get across, cover all the space, that you don't go back to the keeper in hockey anyway. But that's a hockey move, and it has Desi Farrell all over it. And we see the man up waving his arms is the wrong side of a gang of boys hunting in massive packs, and the turnover is made.
The Rabbit Wolverines were in,
so
but I think it's just
yeah, and that was.
It's probably just as well JJ Kocha didn't play hockey. So, come here. We're going to leave this. Yeah. Right. Our last point of the day, right? Obviously, Kieran Kilkenny came on. Obviously a one-trick pony.
Just passing the ball sideways.
That's all he can do. Yeah. Come here. How is this like? I mean, look at how is this guy not in the starting shake-up? Like Scully saw 15 minutes, then got black card, then came on bizarrely, then got taken off. Like, just start Kilkenny. Like, whatever the beef
I don't know, but
put it to one side, put him in, and let's everyone just.
One or two things is going on here. I get the sense, reading between the lines and looking at how they've evolved under Desi Farrell. I don't think he values what Kilkenny did for Jim Gavin the same as Jim Gavin did. But I suspect they were planning. I still assume he's carrying an injury or a non-70 minutes. I would presume if he'd been brought on 25, unless Cully was being punished for getting a City black card. But I don't think they brought him back. Those subscribe to the Kieran Kilkenny worship that I do will say this is a load of tosh. But I will give you some figures going back in history on this. Again, one of the key high-end features. I don't do it on the show because there's a lot of work in it. You only do it for your own team, although I will do for the All Ireland final. When you look at every ball contact of every player, when you get enough ball contacts, you start to see which players' scores go through their hands. And Dublin in 2016-17, the games I had on file, Kilkenny essentially playing as a third midfielder. Dublin were scoring 1.7 times more when ball went through Kilkenny's hands. That's not a coincidence. And this mightn't look like much. Might look like he just hand passed the ball sideways. But Dublin have a free here. And Monaghan have gone really aggressive to press it and turn it over. We'll see here. If there's no easy pass, this is worked on. Now, I will say straight away, the free is in 14 yards. We talk about intelligence. I reckon Kilkenny gambles. Chances are I'll get away with it. Better chance I'll get away with it than try and hit the harder free. Does get away with it. What does he do? Takes it straight back. I'm taking control here. Monaghan sweeper on the left of the screen. Now, what will the naysayer say? Oh, these others hand passed the ball sideways. I could have run off.
Just stick them up there.
Sorry.
Just knock that
have
screen
they all
up
been
there,
off?
yeah.
Have you seen any of them?
No, they're all on. Yeah. Jeez, it'd be a long old show for here for an hour and 11 minutes and them all being off, I'll tell you.
Nearly as long as the one I failed to press record on.
They thought D Forbes was in trouble out in RTE, I tell you. they have D Forbes and RTE, there's a square D over here.
Short free, too short a free, but we get away with it. But I suspect he calculated it because he calculates everything. Watch the man on the sweeper on the left side of the screen. What does Kilkenny do? Just hand past it sideways. What does he significantly do? He follows the ball. And what happens? All of a sudden, now the Monaghan sweeper could probably do more to get across in general. But Kilkenny, by hitting a short free, getting the 1-2, following the ball, has created this lovely 3v3. Darren Hughes, who's really trying to be a sweeper in general, is now man-on-man with James McCarthy. Conor O'Callaghan is inside from Kilkenny. That's what's called vision. And people who have vision recognise at least some level of Kieran Kilkenny's vision. For everybody else, there's GA ProStat software will show you that Dublin score more when the ball goes through Kieran Kilkenny's hands. And even when you click the button to count not just the last 5 touches or the last 8 touches, every touch, it's still Kieran Kilkenny because he stops the madness before it starts. I remember Dublin and Galway National League in 2019. It was like both teams tried to lose the game. Galway made a far better job of it in the second half and got hammered, but it was close at half time. Kilkenny wasn't playing. It saw so much madness from Dublin, straight lines, silly kicks. Kilkenny stops that at source, hand passes it sideways. But what's happened
Is
here?
that your
Short
best
free,
Castleknock
hand pass
accent
inside.
you're putting on there? It is.
No, that's my best. I don't know, just guys I can't be listening to accent.
As your
Where's
man said
Monaghan sweeper? He's in watching Con O'Callaghan hand pass the ball over 14 yards. Kenny knows to make those two simple plays. It's like Claude Makelele, Florentine Perez, the Real Madrid president, said he never passes the ball more than 10 yards. He normally passes it sideways or back ways. Younger players will cause it to be forgotten. The most expensive mistake in the history of soccer. Success followed him to Chelsea, to whoever he went to in France. Real didn't win. Real won one league and no Champions Leagues in the next 10 years. Kilkenny's the same. Again, if you don't understand the maths, which is factual, the language of fact is what mathematics is. The data is there. It's probably about a 1 to 2% chance of a complete coincidence of the data I have from 16 and 17. But I like to think of a bit of vision, and with the data to back it up, I see what he's doing. Most guys don't see it. 2 simple lateral passes, follow the run, double or man-on-man, handy score.
So as your man
And before I
famously
go, it will
said
be a key point.
as your man famously said in Ron Burgundy when he's talking about the Black Panther aftershave, he said 60% of the time it works every time.
Well, Kieran and Kenny,
Speaking of the language of
the
fact,
other players, 170% of the time it works every time.
Speaking of Black Panthers. Okay, well, listen, that has been quite the marathon. So those of you who has survived that stern test are well caffeinated now, no doubt, at this stage. But listen, Professor, that was spellbinding analysis. You had disappeared down a rabbit hole for quite a 24-hour period there, gone on your nature walks and meditated like the Dalai Lama to be able to inject that infusion of statistical data onto the world of GEA. So, folks, thanks again for tuning in. We're going to have another a stats show, a breakdown show later this week. Okay, so without doubt, stay tuned for that, and we'll show you how it's all done behind the scenes by the professor himself. And no doubt there'll be more soccer analogies with JJ Akocha, Claude Makelele, and anyone else he can get his hands on. Tony Cotty will probably make an appearance. So, folks, listen, take care and go easy. All the best.